When I realized discipline hurt more than failure, I never thought I'd be the kind of person writing something like this on a forum. But here I am. Maybe it's because for a long time I felt like I was silently drowning while pretending everything was under control. From the outside, my life didn't look bad. I wasn't failing dramatically. I wasn't completely lost. But inside, there was this constant feeling that I was falling behind my own potential. I used to tell myself that everyone struggles and that things would eventually work out. I spent hours searching for answers, reading about how to stay positive in tough times, and watching videos that promised clarity and motivation. For a while, those things made me feel better, but that feeling never lasted. And deep down, I knew something was missing. For years, I confused hope with avoidance. I thought staying hopeful meant staying comfortable, protecting myself from pressure, and waiting for the right moment to act. I genuinely believed that if I kept a positive mindset, things would align naturally. I consumed a lot of content labeled as motivational story in English or positive thinking story with Moro, hoping one of them would finally unlock something inside me. Instead, what happened was subtle but damaging. I became someone who knew what to do but rarely did it. Someone who understood ideas but avoided execution. My days started to blur together, and slowly, frustration became part of my routine. The truth is, discipline scared me. Not because it was hard, but because it felt restrictive. I saw discipline as something that would steal my freedom, my creativity, my joy. I told myself that structure wasn't for people like me. I believed that mindset alone was enough. That how mindset shapes your life was mostly about staying optimistic and believing in yourself. What no one really talks about is how mindset without action turns into self-deception. I wasn't lazy in the traditional sense. I was busy, distracted, and emotionally tired. And because I was always doing something, I convinced myself I was moving forward. The moment everything started to feel heavier, it wasn't loud or dramatic. It came quietly, after something important slipped through my hands. I had prepared just enough to feel confident, but not enough to feel secure. When the result came back and it wasn't what I hoped for, I felt a deep, sinking shame. Not because I failed, but because I recognized myself in that failure. I couldn't blame bad luck. I couldn't blame anyone else. That night, I sat alone with my thoughts, replaying every excuse I had just to delay real effort. Every time I said tomorrow, every time I avoided discomfort. That's when I realized that failure hurt, but avoiding discipline had hurt me for much longer. That experience forced me to look at my inner patterns. I started noticing how quickly my mind escaped whenever something felt challenging. The moment boredom appeared, my thoughts jumped elsewhere. My phone, my notifications, random videos. Learning how to control negative thoughts wasn't about suppressing them. It was about understanding why my mind always ran away from effort. I realized I had trained myself to seek relief instead of progress. And relief is addictive. It keeps you comfortable while slowly eroding your confidence. At that point, I began to understand how to stay hopeful. When struggling doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means facing uncomfortable truths without running from them. What surprised me most was how small the first changes were. I didn't suddenly become disciplined overnight. I didn't wake up full of energy and motivation. What changed was my relationship with discomfort. I stopped asking myself how to feel better and started asking what needed to be done. Some days were boring. Some days felt heavy. But for the first time, my actions aligned with my intentions. I began consuming content differently too. Even English stories for listening practice and simple English story for adults started to feel meaningful. Because I wasn't just escaping anymore. I was learning, reflecting, and applying. I'm not writing this as someone who has mastered discipline or achieved success. I'm writing as someone who finally stopped lying to themselves. Discipline didn't make my life easier at first. It made it more honest, and that honesty was painful but necessary. Looking back now, I see that discipline wasn't the enemy. Avoiding it was. This realization didn't fix everything instantly, but it marked the beginning of real change. And sometimes that's all you need. A moment of clarity that hurts enough to wake you up. Learning the hard way that motivation wasn't the problem after that realization. I wish I could say everything started improving smoothly, but that wouldn't be honest. What really happened was confusion. For a long time, I had blamed my lack of progress on motivation. I told myself I just needed the right push, the right moment, or the right inspiration. Once I accepted that discipline was the real issue, I felt exposed. Almost uncomfortable. It meant I could no longer hide behind excuses like I'm tired or I'm not in the right mindset today. I started noticing how often I waited to feel ready instead of acting. That's when I understood why searching for things like how to stay positive in tough times had only taken me so far. Positivity without structure was fragile. I began observing my daily habits more closely, almost like an outsider, watching my own life. What shocked me wasn't how unmotivated I was, but how scattered my attention had become. My days were filled with small distractions that felt harmless on their own, but were destructive when combined. I would sit down to work and immediately feel the urge to check something quickly. Minutes turned into hours. At night, I felt mentally exhausted without having done anything meaningful. I realized that learning how to control negative thoughts also meant learning how to control where my attention went. My thoughts weren't always negative. They were simply undisciplined, constantly jumping from one thing to another. There was a moment when I clearly saw the pattern. I would feel inspired, consume content that felt helpful, maybe even watch a motivational story in English or read a positive thinking story with moral, feel energized for a short time. But that energy faded because nothing in my routine supported it. My mindset was trying to move forward, but my habits were pulling me back. That's when the idea that how mindset shapes your life finally made sense to me on a deeper level. Mindset isn't just what you believe, it's what you repeat every day. Through your actions, I started experimenting with small, almost boring changes. Not because I felt confident, but because I felt tired of staying stuck. I stopped waiting for motivation and focused on consistency instead. Some days, the work felt pointless. Other days, my mind resisted hard. But I noticed something important. The more I showed up, even imperfectly, the quieter my internal resistance became. Hope stopped feeling abstract. I finally understood how to stay hopeful when struggling isn't about imagining a better future. It's about building proof, one small action at a time. Looking back now, I can see that this phase was about humility. Accepting that I didn't need more inspiration, but more discipline was humbling. I still enjoy English stories for listening practice, and even simple English story for adults. But now I see them as tools, not escapes. This wasn't a transformation that happened overnight. It was slow, uncomfortable, and often invisible. But it was real. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like my life was finally moving forward, even if no one else could see it. Yet, the quiet battle of training my mind every day, what no one really prepared me for, was how quiet the real struggle would be. I always imagined change coming with some kind of dramatic shift, like a sudden burst of clarity or motivation. Instead, it showed up in small, repetitive moments that tested my patience more than my strength. Waking up and choosing to do the same simple tasks again, even when nothing seemed to be improving, felt harder than any big challenge I had. Faith before. During this phase, I often found myself reflecting on ideas I had read about how to stay positive in tough times, realizing that positivity wasn't about feeling good, but about staying steady when things felt dull and my mind resisted structure in subtle ways. It didn't scream or panic. It négociait. It whispered excuses that sounded reasonable. You've already done enough today. You can skip just this once. Rest now. Start fresh tomorrow. Learning how to control negative thoughts wasn't about silencing my mind, but about recognizing these patterns for what they were. I began to see that my thoughts weren't enemies. They were habit. And like any habit, they'd been shaped over years of repetition. Understanding that changed how I responded to them. Instead of arguing, I focused on redirecting my actions. There were days when nothing felt inspiring at all. On those days, I leaned on routine rather than emotion. I remembered how often I had relied on content labeled as motivational. Story in English to lift my mood, only to feel empty again later. This time, I wasn't looking for motivation. I was building tolerance for discomfort slowly, almost without noticing. My mind started to quiet down. Not because life became easier, but because I stopped reacting to every thought and impulse. That's when the idea of how mindset shapes your life became real. Through experience, not theory. One unexpected change was how my relationship with hope evolved. Before, hope felt fragile, like something that could disappear after one bad day. Now, it felt grounded. I learned that how to stay hopeful when struggling doesn't come from imagining success, but from knowing you can rely on yourself to show up, even when you don't feel strong. Each small act of discipline became a quiet promise I kept to myself. Over time, those promises added up, creating a sense of trust I had never had before. I still consumed stories and reflections, including English stories for listening, practice in simple English story for adults. But my intention had changed. I wasn't escaping my life anymore. I was learning from it. This phase didn't make me extraordinary, but it made me consistent. And consistency, I learned, is far more powerful than bursts of effort, fueled by emotion. Looking back, this was the stage where my inner world truly began to change, even if nothing outside looked different yet. When discipline started to change how I saw myself somewhere along the way, something shifted quietly inside me. It wasn't confidence in the way people usually describe it. I didn't suddenly feel powerful or unstoppable. What changed was more subtle. I started trusting myself. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't constantly questioning whether I would follow through on what I planned. That alone brought a strange sense of calm. I realized that many of my past struggles with anxiety came from broken promises to myself. Understanding how to stay positive in tough times became less about forcing optimism and more about knowing I could handle discomfort without collapsing. I began to notice how my self-talk evolved. Before, my thoughts were either harsh or overly forgiving. I would either criticize myself for not doing enough or excuse everything by blaming circumstances. Discipline introduced balance. Learning how to control negative thoughts wasn't about turning them into positive ones, but about grounding them in reality. When I failed to meet a goal, I didn't spiral. Primera adjusted. When I succeeded, I didn't get carried away. I simply continued. That steady approach slowly reshaped my identity. I wasn't someone trying to change anymore. I was someone who showed up. What surprised me most was how discipline affected areas of my life I wasn't even focusing on. My conversations became clearer. My decisions felt less rushed. Even my sense of time changed. Days no longer slipped away unnoticed. I understood on a deeper level how mindset shapes your life isn't just about ambition or belief, but about the daily evidence you give your mind. Each small disciplined action reinforced the idea that I was capable, reliable, and growing. Even if progress was invisible to others, there were still moments of doubt. I don't want to make this sound clean or perfect. Some days felt heavy, and old habits tried to resurface. On those days, I remembered how often I had leaned on a motivational story in English to feel inspired, and how fleeting that inspiration used to be. This time, I didn't chase inspiration. I returned to structure. That's when I truly learned how to stay hopeful when struggling means having something stable to return to when emotions fluctuate. Now, when I engage with content like English stories for listening practice, or a simple English story for adults, it resonates differently. I don't look for escape or validation. I look for reflection. Discipline didn't turn me into a different person overnight. It changed the way I relate to myself. And that shift, more than any external success, became the foundation for everything that followed. The truth I wish I had accepted sooner if I could go back and talk to the version of myself who avoided discipline. I wouldn't try to motivate or scare them. I would simply tell the truth. Discipline is uncomfortable, but staying stuck is far more painful in the long run. For years, I searched for shortcuts, hoping mindset alone would save me. I looked up ideas about how to stay positive in tough times and believed that thinking the right thoughts would somehow fix everything. What I didn't realize is that positivity without action slowly turns into frustration. Accepting that truth wasn't empowering at first. It was humbling, but it was necessary. The biggest shift came when I stopped seeing discipline as punishment and started seeing it as self-respect. Every time I followed through on something small, I reinforced a quiet message to myself: I can be trusted. That trust changed everything. Learning how to control negative thoughts became easier because my mind had proof that effort led somewhere. My thoughts didn't disappear, but they lost their power over me. I wasn't fighting my mind anymore. I was training it. And slowly, that training reshaped my internal world in ways no burst of motivation ever had. I often think about how much time I wasted waiting to feel ready. I consumed endless content, from every motivational story in English to every positive thinking story with moral, hoping something would finally click. What actually changed my life wasn't a single powerful idea, but repetition. Small actions done consistently. That's when I fully understood how mindset shapes your life. Your mindset is not what you say you believe. It's what your habits prove every single day. There are still moments when life feels heavy. Discipline didn't remove struggle, but it gave me stability inside it. I learned how to stay hopeful when struggling by relying on structure instead of emotion. On hard days, I don't ask myself how I feel. I ask myself what needs to be done next. That simple shift keeps me moving forward when motivation is nowhere to be found. Hope for me now is built on action, not wishful thinking. I'm sharing this here because I know someone reading this might be where I once was. Tired, capable, but stuck. If that's you, know this. You don't need a dramatic transformation. You don't need perfect confidence. You need honesty and consistency. Even now, I still enjoy English stories for listening practice and a simple English story for adults, but I no longer expect them to change my life. For me, discipline did that. Slowly, quietly, and painfully at first. But it worked.